Welcome back to With the First Pick on this edition of The Perfect Fix, which is a series that we're calling it. We're not so much fixing as tweaking and retooling the NFL champion Seattle Seahawks, so we'll modify the title just a little bit. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's former Titans GM Rand Carthon. And, hey, congrats, Seahawks fans. You guys are so good that you're now tired that you're no longer under the radar, and we're talking about you. But these are first world problems, as Mr. Rand likes to call them. So congratulations to you guys. We don't hear in the comments, though, I don't know what it would be. I'm sure there's something somewhere down the line. What is your team's biggest needs just days removed from winning Super Bowl 60? And we're going to talk about what we think some of those issues might be. And, again, there are very few issues. This could be the shortest Perfect Fix ever. But let us know because we'd like to read your comments. All right, let's get to it, Rand. GM John Schneider is absolutely crushing it. He has won now Super Bowls with two different rosters for the most part, Jaron Reed aside, two different quarterbacks, two different head coaches. And they were one of the first teams a decade or so ago, Rand, to build around a quarterback on his rookie deal in Russ Wilson. And now they've done it with a quarterback not making Dak Prescott money, but in Sam Darnold making pretty good money. But they still, we'll talk about this in a moment, have so much salary cap space to work with. They have a roster full of rookies and rookies on their first year or players still on their rookie deals. And it is hard to wrap your brain around how everything came together perfectly. So for me right now, the biggest issue, and maybe this is resolved by the time you guys are watching this, is who's going to replace Clint Kubiak as the OC. He is now the head coach for the Raiders. It sounds like Mike McDonald, the second-year coach, is looking at some in-house candidates, and some of the names are Justin Alton. And Randy, you can correct me if you know these guys and have their names pronunciations. He's a run game specialist and assistant O-line coach. Andrew Janocko is a QB's coach, and he worked under Clint Kubiak closely. He came over from New Orleans as well. Jake Peets is the pass game coordinator. He has ties to Kubiak, and he was an LSU offensive coordinator at one point. So you can correct me if you feel like there are bigger issues, but right now that feels like the most important thing to get accomplished in terms of continuity.
Yeah, no, it's one of them. My second one, the first one I initially thought about, but I agree with yours being ranked number one, the offensive coordinator, but draft picks, they only have 4.
Yeah.
Heading into this year. So to continue to be able to build through the draft and get a lot more swings at it, because you have another year, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but you have a year in which, because you have so much cap space, that you could essentially run it back with the same roster, right? And all the key pieces that you have from this roster, and just retool a couple little guys that you're going to be missing with draft picks. But Justin Alton, in terms of an offensive coordinator candidate, would be a great one. They brought him over. What I know about J.O. is really, really smart, really understands how to meet every player at their level in terms of being able to teach and how to maximize the ability of the players. Jake Peets has been around a very long time. He's been in multiple offenses, multiple systems, has held a pass game coordinator title with various teams. The Janocko guy, I'm not so sure that he's not going to the Raiders. So
that's a good point, because he might take some guys with him.
Yeah, because Kubiak has to build out his staff, and he's going to want to go with guys that he's familiar with. So that'll be a name that I will be probably watching potentially to go to the Raiders and be the play caller. Now, here's the trick. Hey Mike, if you're listening, I'm giving you a little cheat code here. The difference is, if Janocko goes with Kubiak in the title of OC, he's not calling the plays. Versus if he stays in Seattle with the same title, he will have the ability to call the plays. So now, if you're Andrew Janocko, is what's most important to you. So Mike, you can kind of use that however you want to get your guy in there.
Hey, let me ask you this before you move on. Can you block that move, even though it's a lateral move, but the job responsibilities are greater in Seattle, or that doesn't count?
Yeah, you can definitely block it, especially if he's going there not to be the play caller. So you can definitely block it. Now, the other part of it too is, if you're Janocko, is like, what's Janocko's contract? Was he on a 1-year deal? Is he on a 2-year deal?
Oh, right.
So all those things are going to factor in. And all these conversations have been had. I'm pretty sure they have been had, especially because they've known for a couple of weeks now that Kubiak was going to be the Raiders head coach. And some organizations will flat out tell you can't take anybody.
Okay.
And so we'll see if that's, if that's where the Seattle Seahawks are, if that's where Mike McDonald is with his staff.
Yeah, again, these are fantastic problems to have. I'll ask you quickly and we'll move on because you've been in the Rams organization and you've seen a lot of turnover there. And by that, I mean coordinators getting head coaching jobs and also in San Francisco. How have Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan and Les Snead and John Lynch handled that transition? Because it's a pretty important one. Obviously, McVay and Shanahan are offensive play callers, but defensively, it seems to have been pretty much seamless. Maybe Steve Wilkes was a bump in the road a few years ago for San Francisco, but otherwise, every guy that comes through there, either DC on either one of those teams, seems to be hitting the ground running.
Well, it's all about how you build your staff, and it's a testament to each head coach and how they have a succession plan. When I was a GM at the Titans and we were interviewing candidates for our head coaching position, that was the one important thing for me when I got to the portion of the interview in talking about your staff. Right. Let's build out your staff. And some people came with names. Some kind of just said, hey, I know I want these three guys and then the rest we can interview for. There were certain candidates that came in and had a depth chart. Hey, if I don't get Ryan Wilson, I take Stryker. If I don't get Stryker, I take this guy. And so that was really impressive. But the big thing that you wanted to see was a progression plan.
Yeah.
And the one thing that gave me that thought of, how to build it out, if you go back to when Dan Quinn was the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, and they went to the Super Bowl that year. Now, this is crazy. All on one staff on the offensive side of the ball with the Falcons at one time, you had Kyle Shanahan, you had Mike LaFleur, you had Matt LaFleur, you had Mike McDaniel, and you had Raheem Morris, all on the offensive side of the football. Now, what ended up happening was Kyle left to go to San Fran, and he took Mike LaFleur and Mike McDaniel with him. But then at that same time, Sean McVay got the head coaching job at the Rams, and Matt LaFleur went with him to be the OC. Now, the natural thing for Dan Quinn would have been, hey, Kyle, you get to choose one, right? who's most important to you? You get to choose one, take them with you, and then you move on. But not allowing everybody to up and leave. Now, that ended up hurting the Atlanta Falcons organization to some degree because they had a revolving door over the next couple of years at the offensive coordinator position. But again, I want to give Dan Quinn his kudos because one of Dan Quinn's big thing that he preaches is being able to not only develop players, but develop coaches and allow these coaches to get opportunities if he can't directly provide it to go in other places. And he's still he did it when he was the defensive coordinator with the Dallas Cowboys in terms of developing the guys that were under him on the staff. Same thing he's doing in Washington now, having an active plan to help develop these coaches and allow them to grow and move on and get other opportunities.
Shout out to Dan Quinn because I think his first football job out of school was he was like assistant defensive line coach at William Mary. So all great things happen to those of you who make your way through Williamsburg. All right, the Seahawks. Again, the rich keep getting richer. And you mentioned it, Rand. Number 5 in available salary cap space. They have roughly $73 million or so in change here. 73.1 according to producer Stryker on the graphic. So that's a good thing. And let's go over some names of guys who are going to be free agents. And you can tell me, I mean, they can keep any of them, it sounds like, but how many, who's the most important and who might they spotlight? I think the conversation starts, of course, with Kenneth Walker III, Super Bowl MVP. Zach Charbonnet still under contract. He'll be back from the ACL. He may not be ready in September, but that duo was as good as there was in the league last year when they were both healthy. Rashid Shaheed, who they traded for prior to the trade deadline, a big impact player as a returner and obviously down the field. They do have Torrey Horton, who only played 8 games this year, the rookie 5th-round pick. He scored 5 touchdowns in those 8 games. So he is sort of the Rashid Shaheed clone that they may perhaps decide to roll with if they don't bring Rashid back, because I think Rashid's going to get paid. Boye Mafe, Josh Jobe, and Kobe Bryant, and Tariq Woolen all in the secondary. Drake Thomas, a spark plug linebacker. George Solani, who did some of Zach Charbonnet's dirty work once he got injured in the postseason. So you got $73 million burning a hole in your pocket, Rand. What are we doing?
I mean, I personally think you prioritize Rashid Shaheed. You figure out how to get him back, and that's no disrespect to Torrey Horton, but Rashid Shaheed is an all-pro returner. and we saw the impact he had in the playoffs, taking that opening kickoff return 95 yards against the 49ers. And just him being a vertical threat in that passing offense. And so I think you prioritize getting him back. I think you try to figure out how to get Kenneth Walker. I think they they went with a committee approach with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, but I think when when Charbonnet got hurt, I think for Kenneth Walker, I think they saw how to utilize him in his offense. He has to touch the ball to get a feel for it. You can't limit him to 12 to 15 carries and expect him to explode for you. And so you talking about, I mean, for him, you couldn't have scripted this better. He had a great playoffs, over 100 all-purpose, averaged over 100 all-purpose yards,
And that was on the
throughout
callback from the
all three
touchdown,
games.
too.
And then on top of that, you get Super Bowl MVP in the final game you play of that season going into a contract year. So, the football guys like, and no, I'm gonna use one of your terms. You use one of mine, I'm gonna use one of yours. He's living right.
Amen.
Kenneth Walker has been living right. And so Kenneth Walker, I think you try to figure out how to get something done. Rashid Shaheed, you figure out how to get something done. But then also I think you figure out how to rework Sam Darnold's contract. Let's try to lock some.
Yeah, Stryker just said in the graphic he's signed through 27, so you want to keep him around for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, we got to let's figure something out, because you don't want to let it get to another year, and then now that price tag keeps going higher. He keeps playing well. Let's figure out how to get something done now. And with that said, you have some in my mind, and I like to do this part of it, the renegotiation / cap casualty part of it. Right. So you have Chenna Nwosu. He's due $20.7 million.
Ooh.
Is his cap number this year. It has a $8.5 million dead cap hit, which right now they have less than 500,000 in dead cap space. So if they want to take on a little bit more in the dead cap space, they can. And Chenna is 30. He'll be 30 years old. And then you mentioned him at the top of the show, Jaron Reed. He's 34 years old. He's due 7.38 million and a dead cap hit of 3 million. So for me, I would look at either cap casualty, moving on from those two guys, or particularly reworking. Like I said, they're in a unique position because they have so much cap space. They can re-sign some of these guys. I'm sure if they want Josh Jobe back, they can get him for fairly cheap. I think they move on from Reek Woolen. I think he started so high, and then he just doesn't look like a fit in terms of style and what they want to do. And even Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant's been a good, solid player for them, but you still have Julian Love, and now you can get Nick Emmanwori on the field more full time by moving on from Kobe Bryant. But I also want to go back to something when we talked about with the offensive coordinator position, just something to just put out there. This will be their third offensive coordinator in as many years as Mike McDonald's been the head coach. Because in 2024, when he took over the job, he had Ryan Grubb. That didn't work out. He chose to move on. I believe Ryan Grubb is at University of Alabama now, maybe as the offensive coordinator. Then he brought in Clint Kubiak. That clearly worked. He won a championship. Kubiak got a head coaching job. So now he'll be on his third offensive coordinator in as many years as a head coach.
So before we move on, let me ask you quickly about the payday you're thinking about Kenneth Walker, because right now Saquon average annual value is at $20.6 million. I don't think a running back is going to sniff that anytime soon. So let's scroll down the list a little bit here. Jonathan Taylor at $14 million, higher or lower? Oh, he's shaking his head. Let's see. James Cook's at 11.5, and James got more than you thought he might get in the summer. He got a couple.
I'll tell you this. I think just based off of market changing, I think Kenneth Walker will fall into that 8 to 9 million a year range. Is where I think his market will be.
And right. Okay. And I think that sounds about right. He may not think it's fair, but it may be out of his control. And all it takes is one team to overpay him. We'll see how that plays out. But I understand getting paid, just speaking general terms, but there's also something to be said going to a situation that works. You're not going to a dysfunctional organization. So maybe that is part of the conversation. But either way, can't say it enough. Great problems to have. All right. So the Seahawks, as you mentioned, Rand, have 4 picks in 2026. Picks 32, 64, 96, and then 212. A couple of those picks, late round picks, they sent to New Orleans for Rashid Shaheed. But let's play the old game here. I'll give you some names at the bottom of the first round, and you tell me how much sense they make in terms of being the biggest impact? I only have a couple names for you here because, again, the problems this team have are so few and far between. Tennessee cornerback Colton Hood, physical corner. Maybe he's there at the bottom of the first round. You can pick your favorite corner of the top 5, 6 guys that may end up going there. Or linebacker out of Georgia, C.J. Allen. I'm thinking about Drake Thomas perhaps moving on in free agency if they don't bring him back. You just keep making that defense better. The offense is actually in pretty good shape. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So just looking at it with the understanding that Josh Jobe and Reek Woolen are both free agents, and I'm just playing the game as if they're both not there. You kind of almost have to look at one of the corner spots.
Yeah.
Which I think that question will be answered before the draft, obviously. So I would say I would err on the side of corner right now. I would also love for them at either one of those picks to go get a right guard and replace Anthony Bradford over there at right guard, because I think he's kind of been the weak link of that offensive line. And so I would like for them to address that there. Maybe there's a guard for them at the bottom of 1. They went guard last year. Maybe they continue to do so, obviously, again, because the most of the defense is intact.
So what about Vega Ione out of Penn State, or I don't think Caden Proctor's going to fall that far. Emmanuel Pregnone out of USC or Oregon now. Those would I like either one of those guards. And I know we talk about it all the time in terms of these tackles, kicking them in the guard. Like, I'm not so quick to project, particularly Caden Proctor inside the guard, because but I also think it's a mentality thing, and I don't know him as a person to say that he would mentally, and when I say mentally, I'm not saying from being able to pick up the game, but from there's a certain mentality that comes with the left tackle position now, right? And I don't know how well he would personally take to having to kick inside and play guard. I'm sure in the interview process, like, it would be like sort of a demotion. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Mentally? Okay.
Because he's been, a left tackle. He's been that guy at Bama. He's been seen as that guy since high school. So kicking inside, I don't know that he would take too well to it. Now, again, I never met the young man. I'm just, projecting, I guess. But I'm sure in the interview process, he would say all the right things, because, you just kind of have to. But particularly him, I wouldn't be so quick to say, oh, draft him, kick him inside the guard and move on.
My Jedi mind tricks are working. We don't have to kick everybody inside the guard.
No, there's just some guy. I tell you this, a lot of times when I'm talking about a tackle kicking out inside to play guard, it's not just the measurables for me, it's the body structure, right? Because you can have some guys that are 6'4.5", but they're sawed off, big legs, big lower body build. And like, even when I first saw CC Mauanoa, when I saw him at Cam Ward's Pro Day, and someone pointed out, like, hey, man, that's the big offensive lineman for next year. Like, looking at his body, he looks like a guard.
Right.
But then people talk about Will Campbell, which I know we're going to talk about at some point. Oh, maybe he should kick inside the guard. If you look at Will Campbell's body structure, it does not say guard.
Yeah.
Because he's taller, he's narrow-shouldered, he's angularly built, and he has an anchor issue. So I won't even we'll talk about that at another date, but body structure.
That's much more important than necessarily arm length. And we saw Justin Pugh, former first-round pick out of Syracuse, talk about that on the Twitter machines recently. All right, Seahawks fans, let us know who you think is the most impactful player at the bottom of round 1 that you would love to target. Some of the names we mentioned, or maybe some of the names we didn't. I'm curious what you guys think about that. Finally, producer Stryker, let's hear from our good buddy.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs?
Yeah, we're talking about playoffs because this team, along with the Rams, are already favorites to win next year's Super Bowl 61. It'd just be, for me, Rand, it's a matter of just bad luck. The ball bounces the wrong way and they lose a playoff game, because if everyone stays healthy and they get the OC continuity thing, which sounds like they probably will, I don't know what the problem is going to be.
Sounds nice. Make it twice. They got to go in, to me, with the favorites, and not just because they just won it, but like we talked about, they're returning a good bit of this entire roster. And again, first world problems. You got $73 million and you getting the majority of your stars are back. And you can go all in with this roster for next year and say, hey, let's defend the title and run it back. And again, get everybody back. All those free agents we mentioned, with the 73 million, you can afford all of them. And say, let's just roll. Let's just run it back. Real quick before we phase out, another player I want us to keep an eye on that will free up some cap space for him as well is Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is due $17.4 million, $8 million cap hit. I personally think, and I don't have anything to go off of, this is just me feeling and watching the game, I think there is a chance that Cooper Kupp could retire.
Okay. In which case, maybe wide receiver becomes also another draft need.
Yeah, because I have their draft needs now in no order. I have guard, I have corner, I have receiver, and I have tackle.
There you go. All right. That's it. This edition of the Perfect Fix, or the Perfect Tweak, as we should probably call it. Thanks, as always, for joining us and joining into the discussion. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you like what we do here. We'll see you guys in the next one.